Hi, welcome to Project Geospatial. I'm Adam Simmons here at GEOINT 2022 in Denver, Colorado. I have the pleasure of speaking with the mouth of Morrison. No, Joe Morrison of Umbra Labs. Umbra Labs.
Now we go by Umbra Space.
Umbra Space, sorry.
Umbra, for short.
Yeah, there we go. Joe, tell me what your role is with Umbra, and then we'll get right into the company.
Yeah, so my title is Vice President of Commercial Product. And I would say the commercial piece is probably the most important adjective there. I have a colleague on the government side who's busy at this conference talking to his government folks that he's focused on. Actually, weirdly, I'm more interested in the other vendors here than I am in the government, which is kind of fun because everybody's here pitching their stuff and I'm interested in what they're doing. But my responsibility at the company is commercial sales, commercial marketing, and commercial customer success. And commercial really meaning anything other than USG work. So how do people find us? How do they buy from us? And then what's the experience once they start buying data from us? That falls under my purview. And yeah, so a big part of our mission is making it really dead simple to buy satellite data. We sell synthetic aperture radar.
And not just any synthetic aperture radar. You're selling high resolution synthetic aperture radar. Really good stuff.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty exciting. I think it's a cool moment for the industry. There's like finally real competition in the commercial synthetic aperture radar space.
Absolutely. Usually, historically the Europeans have had a monopoly on this.
Yeah.
Now the U.S. there's a couple U.S. providers entering the mix. Well, more than a couple now. But you are one of them.
Totally.
So tell me what makes Umbra unique.
Honestly, there's a bunch. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is the quality of the data that we're working to produce. So we have very, very high resolution synthetic aperture radar that we can produce on the order of 25 centimeter ground projected data. And it's an impressive system. But honestly, the things that differentiate us from competitors, and not just direct competitors, but indirectly the Earth observation market writ large, is our approach to working with customers. We won't ever bump customers from tasking. So very commonly, and this is a frustration I had in my prior job, you pay somebody to get data, and then right at the last moment, they're like, oh, you got bumped.
You're paying for the chance of maybe you'll get an image during this time frame.
The analogy I always use is, imagine if booking hotel rooms were like this. You reserve a hotel room a week in advance. They say, yeah, absolutely.
Maybe.
Right? And you show up for your hotel room that day and they say, actually a VIP took it. So we could get you in next week. It's like, I'm here now. So that's a big one. Our licensing, everything we sell is an open license, Creative Commons licensing. Another problem you find is you're paying thousands of dollars for this data for an internal use only license. You can't even show it to your customers.
So let's back up a second. Open source, not is it open source licensing or Creative Commons? What are we doing here?
It's a Creative Commons CC by 4.0 license. It's an open license.
So what does that mean? How do you all make money if you're open, making a Creative Commons licensing? What is the business plan here?
Yeah.
I think that's the curiosity. And that's the why I think licensing is another method of controlling the pricing for the bigger industry.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. We tell people everything we sell is going to be a flat price and an open license for everybody. And they're like, yeah, how does that work? Because that's not what anybody else does. And my question is like, why does no one else do that? It makes way more sense. So for synthetic aperture radar in particular, optical, it's a little more difficult. Oftentimes you're getting really high resolution nadir data that you're tracing buildings and roads. They don't change that much. Like a Google Maps satellite layer that's a couple years old, it's good enough for most use cases for mapping. I mean, the buildings are still in the same place and there's some change, it's not represented there, but so if you give that away, it really affects your ability to sell it. And so that's why optical folks protect their archives so much. That's why they protect the licensing on their task data so much, because if it gets out in the open, that's it.
Well, I mean, but that goes back to archives. How many people are really buying a lot of archive right now? And I'll say this for the that machine learning has brought into a new renewal of interest in archive data because of how much data is required to do training and labeling.
Yeah.
However, that hasn't quite shifted the pricing in the industry significantly, where it should be to grab bulk amount of data and selling the archives in mass.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. Maybe I shouldn't be. A big part of the issue is that in a prior era, there wasn't real competition. And there's still, for that very high resolution stuff, I mean, Planet announced their new 30 centimeter Pelican constellation that's going to be coming out. Pleiades Neo, Maxar's launching their Legion constellation. Suddenly there's going to be a lot more competition for that high quality, low resolution stuff or high resolution stuff. I think you'll see prices start to come down, and I think you'll start to see archives come up, because the reason that they're so protected is there's some pretty sweet deals that were struck for unlimited access to the archive at very high dollar amounts, that they need to protect those deals. If they just open it up for everybody, be like, hey, why are we paying you so much for access to this archive and you're just giving it away to the new people? I think it'll start to get more competitive. The point that I was really making with synthetic aperture radar, and part of the reason that we're not even planning to sell archival data, we're planning to just give it away, which again, people are like,
whoa, see, that's another, you didn't mention that before.
Yeah.
So you're planning on giving away the entire archive. So if anybody wants an archive image past what date? Wow, how long?
Probably about 90 days, but that
90 days, wow.
Yeah, so here's why. What do you use synthetic aperture radar for? What is it uniquely good for? Monitoring. You can see at night, you can see through clouds, you can see at very high resolution, you can see human activity. Human activity is I need to task this thing kind of transaction. It's where is the convoy right now? Where was it yesterday? The archive is a chance to test out ideas, to train algorithms. And our ultimate vision of the future is that most of our data won't ever see human eyes. It's going to be machine learning models that are combing through that data for interesting signals that present the most relevant information at the right time to the right human who can combine it with a bunch of other information, a lot of it non-remote sensing data, human intelligence, ship manifests, data that's not spatial in nature, but has a spatial context when combined with that right data at the right time. So we're trying to align our business model to where the value is. If the value is real-time tasking, low latency data, that's where we should make our money. We shouldn't make our money on archival stuff that's onesie, twosie relevant. Instead, we're trying to use that archive as a tool to grow the industry, make it easy for some ambitious 19-year-old computer science student who has a crazy idea, log into our system and see a giant archive, terabytes of data they can test their ideas out on. Now, over time, if that becomes like a real significant cost, maybe there's like a Costco style membership where you pay a little bit and then you get access to just to help offset it. But the way we make money, the thing that drives our growth as a business, our profitability, should be aligned with the value we provide to customers. And unlike a lot of optical providers, it's not the archive, it's not mapping use cases that have a longer shelf life. It's right now what's happening in this area of interest. There's a storm hitting this coastline. We need to see where the water is. That's where we're going to charge and make money. And we're not going to use that as an opportunity to gouge people. We're going to set a flat price so people know what they can pay. And there's just different types of businesses you can build when you know you're going to get the collections that you ordered. You know what it's going to cost to do it. So you can plan. I'm going to invest my own capital in an algorithm to be able to automate this workflow because I know I'll make money on it because I know what my costs will be. That's the biggest problem with this industry is people, they don't know what it's going to cost. They don't know if they're going to be able to get the data. And providers, frankly, have analytics groups over a barrel where they can just kind of yank capacity, yank availability whenever they want. And then they launch their own competitive analytics to compete with their own customers. It's a terrible situation. So, when you say like what's different about us from other providers, I think it's just that we're willing to be in the background. Like we don't need to be...
You're willing to be the wholesaler.
Yeah, we're willing to just be like any other vendor. And we don't tell our customers, hey, only buy from us. We say take us and combine it with our competitors and combine it with other types of data and build something that's never been built. And we'll just be one input to that.
So I think after what you just said, the next question everybody's probably been wondering is, how the hell do I sign up? Where is this stuff now?
Yeah.
And what's the status of Umbra right now? When can we look forward to getting our hands on this stuff?
Well, I mean, part of having that long-term view of growing the industry is also taking a long-term view to building the right foundation for our business. And we're going to go slow, frankly. There's a handful of providers that we call early access partners who are going to get access to task our satellites before everybody else, that are going to get access to our API to integrate with their systems before everybody else. So honestly, like the way most people will interact with our system will probably be through interacting with one of our early access partners who provides access via their own platform, which most of them integrate every other provider into their platform too. So it's going to be a while, but right now the status is we have 2 satellites on orbit. We're calibrating the second satellite. We have a third satellite launching in a few months. We got 2 more launching before the end of the year and more launching after that. So we're going to be building up this constellation, but the expectation that I try to set for people is there's a cohort of really, really sophisticated, advanced analytics providers who a lot of them have been around for 5-10 years, waiting for the opportunity to unleash what they can do with a provider who's willing to give them leash. We're taking big bets on those providers and helping them grow their business. And then we'll open up the platform more broadly, but we're not going to do that until we have the capacity to open it up without totally cannibalizing the experience of those early partners who are taking a bet on us and building products on top of our data. So we would rather go slow to go fast. We would rather spend the next year or 2 years working with a small handful of really, really talented, specialized providers, giving them a great experience. And honestly, like, stuff's going to break. Our software is going to break, and our systems are going to break in ways that we don't. Stuff's going to go wrong, and we'll work through it with them. And they'll have early access. They'll have kind of a sweetheart deal, so they'll have the patience to work through it with us. But at some point, 99% of the time, when you go to book that image, you'll get it.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's like, well, if we're only using 10% of our capacity, and 90% is going to waste, let's open it up and let people use that extra 90% and build all kinds of things that no one would have imagined you could build on top of this data. So people are going to have to bear with us. It's going to take a while, but it's a long-term vision and a long-term bet that synthetic aperture radar today, absurdly underutilized. Almost in the best case, it's used like crappy optical.
Well, pricing point's a big deal there. I mean, the fact that some of these vendors are still charging for archive as much as they are for tasking, thousands and thousands of dollars. I mean, how do you might weigh that, like, I really need the cloud cover shot of the SAR can see through, but I'm not willing to pay, $4,000 or $5,000. Maybe I can wait a day for a EO shot if that's only $300, or a couple hundred.
I've literally had, this is a thing that I come back to. Do you have an optimistic view of the industry? Like, do you think that we're anywhere close to our potential? This conference, the people in this conference, do you think they're anywhere close to what we can accomplish in the future? If you have a pessimistic view and you think this is it, I've had competitors tell me, if you bring the price down, you're going to take $100 million market and shrink it to a $10 million market.
You can equivalate this situation to many other industries that have done something similar. Look at the smartphone industry. Look at how actually a lot of services between Google, Amazon, whatever, actually released a lot of free products and services, and signing people up for free. Even their the Gmail, for example, that was completely free. There was no marketing for that. They didn't have ads for that. Right. I onboarded and convinced people. They sucked people in by the drink.
Yeah.
But also promoted innovation at the same time.
Totally. If over and over and over and over and over again, like, I've literally never seen an economic model where the assumption is when you bring friction down and you bring costs down, markets shrink. Like, it's a silly, pessimistic view.
You're actually reaching new demographics.
Totally.
You're even, a lot of people here have the term democratization of geospatial data or geospatial or imagery data keeps on coming up in some form or fashion. Like, well, to me, democratization also means reaching, perhaps even reaching the consumer level with some of the stuff that historically has been horribly too overcomplicated. SAR does not have to be overcomplicated.
No.
Imagery does not have to be overcomplicated. I remember when imagery first reached the general consumer with, you can go as far back Google Maps or Google Earth. That was a game changer for everybody. Everybody who got to see, got to play, obviously looking for their houses, but everywhere else. But you're also putting that in the hands of people, and guess what? The real estate market exploded. All kinds of other people all of a sudden realize the potential, what they can use this for.
Right.
And I could see something very much happening by introducing SAR imagery too.
Well, I'll give you some tangible examples. I just sat down with the folks at Astera, an Israeli startup that uses.
We just interviewed them before you.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, let me give a shout out. They're using L-band synthetic aperture radar to detect leaks along water infrastructure. And I live in Austin, Texas. Austin uses their tools to detect leaks along water infrastructure. They're an Israeli company using a Japanese system to detect leaks in Austin, Texas. That's the scale of this industry. If you figure out a solution that works, it's not about the algorithm development and the technical challenge. It's about educating an end market that has no idea. You can use satellites from space to monitor, thousands of miles of horizontal infrastructure.
Oh yeah.
There should be an Astera for every imaginable niche. That's water utilities. Are they famous early adopters of new technology? No. So insurance, forestry, agriculture, you see all that. What you see from a lot of satellite providers is a drop-down menu on their website that says insurance, infrastructure. How could we design satellites, launch them, operate them, process the data off of them, and learn about the agriculture industry and the insurance industry and ever compete with Astera? We're trying to, the joke we use is arm the rebels. It's like we give them the raw data at the price point that they need to go build an application, not an algorithm that detects water, an application someone logs into every day that says, here are all the potential leaks and here's steps you can take to go remedy them. That's the work. And you're not going to get to that depth of knowledge in any industry while also on the side running a space systems business. So that's why we stop at producing data and then say, it's your job, Astera. It's your job, Orbital Insight, Descartes, Ursa, who's right next to us. Go build applications on top of this that to your end users doesn't look like synthetic aperture radar.
Yeah.
It looks like their workflow. And it blows their mind that you found that leak on that remote part of your pipeline. Like, how did you do that? That's crazy. Well, it's actually pretty simple if you break it down into constituent parts, but it takes a bunch of providers. I think there's a movement now. It takes people taking a bet on those startups.
Look at this. E-commerce or commerce sector of supply chain has already done this. Between the wholesale to all the way to the retail markets and everywhere in between. I think that type of supply chain is much needed. Right now, imagery providers act like, their entire ecosystem.
Yeah.
The entire ecosystem. So, and I think that creates a closed economy to an extent. So, yeah, we're primed for revolution. I think I'm very optimistic of what we can still achieve. There's so much.
Totally.
If just needs to open up the market a bit.
And your point about prices, well, are prices not coming down because there's no opportunity to bring them down? I mean, a lot of these big businesses are very profitable.
Yeah.
There's a lot of margin in the price points that they currently use. Why bring your cost down if you've got your own analytics and your ability to get access to that data at a lower cost basis than your own customers is part of your competitive advantage? There's no incentive to make it easier to buy data when you're competing with your own customers. So if you just have one or two radical companies in each phenomenology that say, we're not going to do the analytics, we are going to make it easy to work with us, we're going to make the licensing open, we're going to bring the cost down, it will put competitive pressure on everyone else. And I think my hope is that, like any efficient market, as it starts to become more competitive, prices come down, friction comes down, and there's a proliferation of new entrants into that market who find opportunities, arbitrage, little niche businesses that they can build that would never be profitable for a satellite company to go after. It's too small a niche. But because we've made it dead simple to get access to raw data, like you can build a several $1 million business on that little tiny niche. And that's what's most exciting to me about my job is I get to meet all these cool entrepreneurs who are obsessed with some random problem I've never heard of in my entire life. And they're like, I just can't get the data I need to be able to build this and solve this problem, build a solution. And it's so exciting to know that like all we have to do is put our heads down for the next 5 years and execute on the plan. There's no ambiguity at all. We know exactly what we got to do, how many satellites we got to launch, the work we have to do to get them operational, to get it efficient. And in the process, we're going to enable all these entrepreneurs to build really cool businesses that for their end users, we might only have 1,000 customers. And they might serve tens of millions of users if we place our bets right on those companies that really have a vision to build an application. So yeah, I think that term you said earlier, democratize satellite data, it's not a democracy. Like my mom's never going to use synthetic aperture radar in her daily life, but she might use a tool that relies on synthetic aperture radar, and she has no idea that application she uses every day derives some relevant information from SAR data, just like her weather app uses passive microwave sensing, and she has no idea what that is or how that connects to the weather prediction. That's where we need to get with the remote sensing market generally.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, is there anything else you'd like to express about Umbra to our audience or the general public out there?
I would say if you're a government user, come talk to us. It's actually my colleague, Jason Malaire, who runs our government programs. What you're going to find is instead of trying to be the only person you talk to, we're going to introduce you to those innovative companies, the URSAs and the Descartes and the Orbital Insights and the Asteras of the world, because for the most part, we're going to be in the background. Like if you have a problem that can be solved with synthetic aperture radar, we're not going to be the people to take it all the way to a solution, but we do want to be a node in a network of people and introduce you to innovative folks. So I would say, even if you're a little uncomfortable, like you don't know exactly how you're going to use synthetic aperture radar, if you come to us, we'll point you to somebody doing something interesting, relevant to what you're working on. And honestly, that's our goal. Channel people to the folks who are doing the best work in the industry, and always think of it in terms of a partnership being a little bit in the background, growing the industry more broadly, but don't hesitate to reach out to us.
And how do they reach out to you?
Well, you can go to umbra.space. There's a contact us form.
There.
It comes directly to my inbox. So if we don't follow up immediately, you know who the problem is. But we do.
You can also reach out to him on Twitter.
You can find me on Twitter too. And I do respond on Twitter. If you're a commercial user, if you're a government user, we read every single person that comes into that inbox. And if you put your information in that contact form, you're automatically on our list of people to receive sample data when it's available. So that's also an opportunity to see, what does this data look like? If you've never used synthetic aperture radar before or haven't looked at it much, it's pretty funky. It's not like optical. It's not super simple to interpret without a little help. So it's nice to be able to see tangibly what we're talking about when we say 50 centimeter data or 1 meter data. What does that actually look like? If you reach out to us through the website, then you'll automatically be entered to receive that data once it's ready for us to share later this year. So
perfect. Well, Joe, I appreciate you joining me and enlightening everybody about not just what Umbra can provide, but the real issues of the community.
Awesome.
So,
well, you're a legend. I love your content.
I'm a legend. Oh my God, man.
Yeah, I watch pretty much everything you put out. So I'm excited to see how this turns out.
Mouth of Morrison right here. You're legendary as well. So thank you for joining us. I'm Adam Simmons, Project Geospatial, here with Joe Morrison of Umbra Space. We'll talk to everybody next time.